A few decades ago, getting a customer's attention was relatively simple. A company could run a television commercial, place an advertisement in a newspaper, put up a billboard, and reach millions of people. Consumers had fewer choices, fewer screens, fewer distractions, and fewer brands competing for their attention. Today, that world is gone. The average person is surrounded by marketing from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to sleep. Social media feeds, streaming platforms, websites, podcasts, apps, emails, text messages, digital ads, retail displays. Everywhere people look, someone is competing for their attention. And that's why one of the biggest battles in modern business isn't about products, it's about attention. Because in today's economy, attention has become one of the most valuable resources in the world, and every brand wants more of it. The reason is simple. You can't sell to someone who isn't paying attention. Before a company can earn a customer, before it can build trust, before it can generate a sale, it first has to get noticed, and that is becoming harder than ever. Think about how much information people consume every day: news, videos, messages, notifications, entertainment, advertisements. The amount is staggering. Consumers are exposed to more content than any generation before them. But there is one thing that hasn't increased: time. People still have only 24 hours in a day, which means attention is limited. And when something is limited, competition increases. That's exactly what's happening. Every brand is competing for the same finite resource: consumer attention. Social media has intensified this battle dramatically. Years ago, companies communicated with customers at specific moments. Today, brands can reach consumers constantly. A person scrolling through a phone may encounter dozens of companies within minutes. As a result, businesses aren't simply competing against direct competitors anymore. A clothing brand isn't only competing against other clothing brands, it's competing against every piece of content on a consumer's screen: videos, photos, news stories, memes, influencers, entertainment. Everything is competing for attention at the same time. That's a much tougher challenge. Another reason brands are fighting harder than ever is because consumers have become more selective. People have learned how to ignore marketing. They skip ads, scroll past promotions, mute notifications, and filter out content that doesn't interest them. Businesses understand this. Simply being visible is no longer enough. Companies must be interesting, relevant, and engaging. They must earn attention rather than assume they'll receive it. This has changed how marketing works. Brands increasingly focus on storytelling rather than simple advertising. They create content, build communities, develop personalities, and try to establish emotional connections. Why? Because attention often follows interest, and interest follows connection. The rise of digital platforms has created another challenge: algorithms. Whether it's social media, video platforms, or search engines, algorithms increasingly determine what people see. Brands now compete not only for consumer attention but also for algorithmic visibility. Companies spend enormous amounts of time trying to understand how platforms distribute content. A small change in an algorithm can affect millions of views, millions of clicks, and millions of dollars. That's why attention has become such a strategic priority. Businesses know visibility can disappear quickly. Consumer behavior is also changing. People are becoming more skeptical, more informed, and more difficult to impress. Consumers have access to endless alternatives. If one brand fails to capture attention, another is ready to take its place. Loyalty still exists, but earning loyalty has become harder. Companies must continually provide value, not just once, repeatedly. That's one reason so many brands are investing heavily in customer experiences. The goal isn't simply making a sale, it's remaining memorable. Because memorable brands attract attention more easily. Technology has made this battle even more intense. Artificial intelligence, automation, content creation tools, digital marketing platforms. These technologies allow businesses to produce more content than ever before. The result is an explosion of information: more videos, more articles, more advertisements, more promotions. Consumers are surrounded by choices. While this creates opportunities, it also creates noise. standing out becomes increasingly difficult. Businesses must work harder just to be noticed. Another interesting consequence is that attention itself is becoming a business model. Many of the world's largest companies generate revenue by capturing attention. Social media platforms, streaming services, digital publishers, search engines. Their business models often depend on keeping people engaged. The longer people stay, the more valuable their attention becomes. This creates an economy built around engagement, an economy where attention functions almost like currency. Brands understand this, and that's why they're fighting so aggressively to capture it. Perhaps the most surprising part of this trend is that attention often matters more than size. A smaller company with strong engagement can outperform a much larger competitor with weak engagement. A brand that understands its audience can generate enormous influence, even without massive budgets. This has created opportunities for new businesses, startups, independent creators, and niche brands. Attention can level the playing field, at least temporarily. But maintaining attention is difficult. Consumers constantly move on to the next thing, the next trend, the next platform, the next source of entertainment. Businesses must adapt continuously. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. That's why companies are constantly experimenting, trying new formats, new campaigns, and new strategies. They're searching for ways to remain relevant in an increasingly crowded marketplace. What's fascinating is that this battle extends beyond marketing. Attention now influences product design, customer service, brand strategy, and even business models. Companies increasingly ask the same question: how do we stay relevant? How do we remain visible? How do we keep customers engaged? Because in many cases, attention is the first step toward everything else. Without attention, there are no customers, no relationships, and no growth. So why is every brand fighting for attention? Because attention has become one of the scarcest resources in modern business. Consumers have more choices than ever, more distractions than ever, and less willingness to focus on things that don't immediately provide value. Brands understand this reality. They know products alone are not enough. Being good isn't always enough. Sometimes the biggest challenge is simply being noticed, and that's why companies are investing billions of dollars trying to capture attention. Not because attention guarantees success, but because without attention, success becomes almost impossible. In the modern economy, attention is often the gateway to influence, the gateway to loyalty, and ultimately the gateway to growth. Which is why the battle for attention may be one of the most important business battles of our time, and it's only becoming more competitive.